Strong bodies,
kind hearts,
unstoppable minds.
You're listening to Strong Girls Pod,
where strong women share their stories
to inspire strong girls.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Strong Girls Pod. As always, I'm your very excited host, Charlie Ekstrom, and I am here for all things beach volley today. I'm finally getting a beach volley episode this season, you guys, and it is with one of the all-time greats. She is the 2021 Olympic gold medalist. She is somebody that I look up to incredibly in life and in volleyball. So this, everybody, is Alix Klineman. Alix, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for the sweet words, and I'm happy to be here and to just get into everything volleyball.
It's going to be awesome, and I think it's fun. Everybody gets to hear me geek out on volleyball when I compare it to other sports, but today we really get to have a beach episode, which is so awesome for this season. Haven't gotten one in a little while, and so I get to go full absolute beach volley mode, and I'm excited that I get to do it with somebody as phenomenal as you.
Yeah.
Of course. So, Alix, I've cued you in a little bit. I've told everybody that you're an Olympic gold medalist, but beyond that, we don't have your full background yet. So I would love for you to kind of kick us off into the Alix file of giving us your background, your story, your career spanning through why you chose beach, what you played before, where you were at. Let's give a little cue into your background.
Sure. So I am from Manhattan Beach, California, which if you don't follow volleyball, it's pretty much the beach volleyball mecca. And so I played all sports growing up, but I started playing volleyball from a very young age. I think I was first exposed to the sport at 6 years old when my parents were dropping my brother off at like a summer camp, and they thought I was signed up because it was for 8-year-olds and I was so tall, and they're like, hey, you can leave her. And my parents were like, no, she's only 6. So that's how I got kind of my first day of beach volleyball, and my parents picked me up and they're like, how did she do? And they're like, great, we just need more orange slices for tomorrow because she ate all of our snacks. So I really was exposed to beach volleyball super young, and I loved it. It was a very kind of a mellow introduction. And then eventually I was doing another beach volleyball camp, and a coach kind of told my parents she should really join a club team. So I think I was on my first club team at age 8, which is young, but I always tell people it's not necessary to start, that early. And then, so I was on an indoor club team at 8 and would play beach tournaments throughout the summer, kind of those CBVA tournaments that they play up the coast. And then I'm trying to think, around high school, I was still trying to play some beach. And I remember somebody from USA Volleyball was like, you should take the indoor path because there were no beach volleyball scholarships at the time. There was a clearer path to kind of a professional career. And so at that time, I started to focus really on indoor. I played at Maricosta High School in Manhattan Beach, which is also kind of a powerhouse for women's volleyball. And then I went to Stanford for college, like you. And I was there from 2007 to 2011. Then I went overseas and played 5 years pro. I played 3 years in Italy, 2 in Brazil, and they were absolutely awesome, some of my favorite experiences in my life. But I was always trying to make the Olympic team. So I was actually on the national team from age 18. So I was in the gym leading up to Beijing. I was in the gym leading up to London. I was in the gym leading up to the Rio Olympics, and I was left off of all of those rosters. And so it's really hard to be training full time, and you're really invested, and the stress levels are so high, and you're, at that time, I think the training roster is usually around 25. And so they're picking 12 for the Olympics from that 25. And so to be in that 13 to 25 range over and over is pretty defeating and disappointing and disheartening and all of that. And so I just remember when I got left off of the Rio roster, I kind of had a moment to just think about it and take a step back and be like, hey, what do I really want? Is this making me happy? If I don't have the Olympics to train for, is this still as fulfilling as maybe it would be if I was chasing the Olympics? And playing beach had always been in the back of my mind. And so I just decided, I was like, you know what, next year I'm going to move home. I'm going to play beach. I'm going to try for the Olympics on the beach. I had no idea what that entailed. It was a very naive dream and thought. And I kind of just jumped right in. I played with a bunch of partners my first year. And then I was lucky enough to land April as my partner she was kind of on the market at the same time that I was, and we ran into each other at Stagecoach. And I'll never forget. She came up to me and was like, "Okay, like I'm looking for a partner for Tokyo." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, like, call me whenever." And she's like, "No, you need to get better first." And so, I had that like window of like, okay, if I train really hard and I improve a lot, I have a chance to have this amazing partner. And long story short, we ended up teaming up, having an amazing partnership together over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. We won gold in Tokyo, which was just like the absolute cherry on top. And now we both have kids and we're playing beach again.
I can't wait for the day that we see your sons playing beach volleyball together in the future too. It's like a team, but make it just years and years down the road. It's the A team coach moms coming in the later road.
I'll let April do the coaching. I'll be like team mom and bring the snacks.
Well, extra orange slices for sure, because I have a feeling that Theo might take after his mom and
he's huge.
Be a fan. It's pretty special. I think that's hilarious that you guys caught each other at Stagecoach, and April was like, "Okay, I'm looking for a partner, but get after it. Like, I want to do this together, but let's go."
I know. We'd had a couple of drinks, and like the next day, I was like, "Did I like imagine this, or did I like read the situation wrong?" Or like, you're kind of just like replaying it in your head. And obviously, it was a really big deal to me that she even came up to me and said that. And I feel like for her, it was maybe like, "Oh, I just dropped this, hint to a player. Maybe we'll see if it works out." Like, I feel like it was a much bigger deal to me, but it was very, very motivating at the time. I remember that.
I love that. And it's something that's like, again, like you said, it could be a little side comment that she'd made that she didn't necessarily think twice about, but it kind of just catalyzed this whole growth of you and really kickstarted your career into beach volleyball. Like getting that opportunity, getting that little side comment, you're like, okay, yes, this is the thing. Like I'm edging out of my indoor side. I don't really know what's this thing that I want to do. I'm starting to play beach more. Can I see this future in it? And April Ross looks at you, one of the biggest legends in the game ever. And she looks at you and goes, "I'm looking for a partner for Tokyo. Do you want to do the thing? Like let's put in the work and let's make it happen." And you guys have such an awesome partnership on and off the court. I feel like it's become like such a friendship, getting to see it from a side perspective and just the culture that you guys have fostered. You're really starting to see nowadays in partnerships that people are taking it a lot more seriously of like, hey, this is a partnership, a friendship. This is something that we're really growing like a relationship. And while that's always been really, really prevalent in beach volleyball, I feel like it wasn't necessarily as advertised of like how much fun it could be as a partnership until we really started to see your guys's relationship start to thrive and pop off. And, then you start winning a lot of medals, and then we're like, okay, time for Tokyo, time to watch you guys kick some butt.
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned about beach volleyball is it's not just like having the talent or being skilled enough. Like finding the right partner is a really hard thing, and when you kind of like get it right, it's really, really special. And I think that's what sets the teams, like the top teams, apart from the other really good teams. And so I just feel like so lucky that I found a partner that was so well suited for me and vice versa. And it was it was just such an amazing partnership. I feel like it started out, really professional and very like volleyball forward. But then as we started to kind of like broaden our life goals and become moms and get married and all of that, like we've become even closer, which is really cool. And now that we're back playing together, I feel like it's just like our relationship is even that much stronger.
Aw. That's so cute. It's like goes from business to friends, then you get to have business and friends simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I feel like too, looking at your guys' partnership and just like the culture element of it, like you bring up like that it was very business oriented, but then looking into like finding ways to have each other thrive. I'd love to kind of jump into the thought process of as you guys were creating this partnership, what did steps look like as you guys were learning each other's cues? What were conversations like as you were kind of starting to create this culture for your team, as you knew going in that you were going to be on this kind of like 5-year journey together, or 5+ now year journey together? What were the steps that you took early to help create that thriving culture together?
Yeah, well, when I say that it was like kind of all business, like that's kind of not the correct way to describe it, because in order to be a really good teammate and partner on the beach, it requires a ton of vulnerability. And I feel like that's a very personal and like intimate thing. And so it's like maybe we weren't like super tight friends right off of the bat, but we were very like open with each other. And I remember one of our first conversations, we actually met with a sports psych, Nicole Davis, who I played with on the indoor women's national team. And I kind of just like laid my heart on the line and just explained how tough the indoor national team program was for me, and that I never really felt like I fit in, and I never really reached my potential, and that I was like so hungry to still make the Olympics, and I want to do it differently on the beach, and I want to feel like myself on the court, and I want to take up more space and all of that. And that was a hard thing to like share with somebody that you don't know very well, but I kind of just, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want to do this right, and I want to do it a way that feels true to me and that feels like empowering to me. And I think looking back, like that even kind of set the tone for April of like, oh wow, she's like laying her heart on the line right now and is being very vulnerable. Like I can do the same thing. And so I think that was a really cool moment and like conversation at the beginning of our relationship. I also think I was very aware of kind of just like how much room for improvement I had, and I did not have any ego. I remember pitching myself to her, and I was like, yeah, like I have trained or I've competed at a high level for a lot of years. I know what it takes to be one of the best players. I know what it means to train through an Olympic cycle, and that it doesn't just take, a few good tournaments. It takes consistency and 4 years of high finishes and all of that. But at the same time, I think I had enough humility to say, okay, I don't know what I'm doing out here. Like I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to get extra reps. I'm going to watch a ton of film. I'm going to take all of the advice I can get from you. And so I think that really set us up for kind of just a good like foundation, because I think she has so much experience. Jen Kessie, who was our coach the first couple of years of the quad, had so much experience, especially being April's partner. So like there'd be so many times on the court where I'm trying to learn how to pull and I'm just not quite getting it. And Jen would be like, hey, get off the court. Like, let me show you. And she'd jump on and like, they would play. And I'm like, okay, well now this just looks really easy and effortless. But it was, like how cool to have two people with so much experience and just talent and all of that, like trying to just share all of that and pour all of that out to you. So I was just trying to absorb it like literally as quickly as I could. And I think from the outside, sometimes it seems like a quick kind of transition, but it was not quick. Like there was just countless reps on the beach of like failing and not doing it quite right and just sticking with it. And so, yeah, it was just a lot of hard work, a lot of openness, a lot of vulnerability. I really think like vulnerability and openness was kind of our superpower as a partnership. I think there was days that one of us wasn't feeling good or confident or whatever, and we were always just sharing that. Like, sometimes it'd be in warmups and I'd be like, I have no rhythm on offense. Like, feel free to go for it on two. Like, help me out here, And so I think instead of like, it'd be really easy to just try to fake it till you make it or not tell your partner or be afraid that like you look weak doing that. And I think there was none of that with our partnership, and that was really cool.
I like it. And I feel like so much of it, you set that standard really early of that vulnerability, but you had the vulnerability off the court and the mental game simultaneously with your work on the court. And I think that it's a really cool thing of just being able to, you were like, I'm going to be a sponge. I'm just going to soak up any information that I'm given and really work to just like take this and try to grow and try to continue to increase my game and go for it. But April on the other side is seeing you not only be a sponge, she's hearing these stories, like being able to have that comfort and being able to share. And like you said, I think so much of what's not seen in sport, in probably every sport, but just because it's very personal being a beach volleyball player, something that's so not seen in our sport is really like the intimacy that comes in that partnership, and that comes in the behind the scenes pieces of like the sport is not personal, but there are so many elements that feel really personal because it's so close and you work so often and so closely with your partner. And so being able to have that vulnerability both on and off when you're working on the mental side and the physical side of the game definitely had to have strengthened the partnership through and through, and is likely why you guys are still playing post babies, post wedding for you and pre-wedding for April. Happy wedding weekend to April Ross actually this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. Yeah. No, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And also just to even like add on to that, I remember April saying in an interview once that there was a time where we were watching film, and I think this happened a lot of times, where we'd watch something and I'd be like, yeah, I know my pulling is terrible. I need to work on that. And it kind of took her aback. Like, wow, she's just like fully admitting that she did something wrong and that she needs to work on it still. And she said that that kind of opened the door for her to admit some of her weaknesses. And she said she used to maybe feel a little defensive of like, well, it's not as bad as it looks, or like she didn't want to admit that she was doing something wrong or have to take some of the responsibility of losing. And I think I kind of just knew, I was like, I know that I'm not anywhere where I need to be. And like the quicker that I can just kind of own my weaknesses and own my mistakes, like the sooner we can move forward and get better. And I think, yeah, I just think it all goes back to being really like kind of open and realistic and like, okay, this is where we're at and like, how do we get better and let's do this together. And yeah, it was cool that something, just me being inexperienced and kind of owning it, like inspired her to own maybe some of her weaknesses too.
I love that. And it's like, lay the armor down. We're going to go in this together.
Yeah.
We don't need to combat each other in this. We're going to work together on it.
Yeah. And for beach too, like the special thing about beach is that there's no sub. So it's like, we know that we're in it together. She wants me to succeed because that's how she succeeds. I want her to succeed because that's how I can succeed. Our coach wants us to succeed because we're the only two players that we have. You know what I mean? And whereas with indoor, like you were kind of always looking over your shoulder, like who's coming at my position, who's trying to steal my spot, or vice versa. And I think it was just hard to really feel like safe and secure of like, this is our team and everybody's really going for the same goal. And so I think I found that really special about just our team on the beach, is just knowing that everybody was moving in the same direction. Everybody was rooting for each other. And so it was like, even in moments where we had to be critical of each other, we could trust that it was for the good of the team.
I love that. I think it's something that I love hearing, that it was almost grounding for you to kind of switch over from indoor to beach, because you'd gone from this place where like it became a sense of insecurity just like being in that indoor facility and being on that setting. And then you look at beach and you're like, okay, I'm here with one other person and I am going to be supported indefinitely by this other person because I am their only option when I'm on the court with them. Like there's nobody who's asking to kick me to the curb, because right now in this tournament, you got me or you got nobody. So we got to do this together.
Totally. And that was like a huge allure of coming to the beach too, is like knowing that I couldn't get subbed out. I knew if we didn't do well, we had to look in the mirror and know that it was only, there's no one else to blame except for ourselves. And I was willing to take that on, but there was like too many years that passed in the national team gym where I was dying for that responsibility and I was dying for that opportunity, and just knowing that opportunity would never get taken away. It was like, if I have enough points, then I've earned my way here and I'm allowed to be on the court and nobody can affect that. So that was just such a big factor of me coming to the beach. And it ended up being just like one of my favorite things. It's like we always got to go out there and put our hard work to the test, and we got to showcase everything that we'd been working on. And it's just gratifying to know that everything that you do at practice is going to have a chance to be shown on the court, and to really just get to show off all of that hard work.
I love it. It is. It's a special thing about our sport, is that it really does, you like see the translation, not always immediately, but when you see the translation and feel it, like you really get the chance to feel it and just be present with it. Because again, there is that presence that there's nothing else that you have to look over your shoulder for. Like you're right then and there, and it's what you can give in that moment, and nobody else is going to affect your play on the court besides yourself and what else your team is giving you. So it's something, I agree with you that it's something that I love the most. It's like, what else, what can affect this game other than myself? Like the work that I put in, the effort that I give, and the mental skills that I'm giving, but there's literally nothing else that's going to affect this game. Like no coach is telling me that I have to get off the court. No coach is necessarily helping me in rally. Like it is me, my partner, that's what we're giving. And so I like that element of presence that beach volleyball gives at all times. It's like, yep, I'm right here right now. And what am I bringing to the table right here, right now?
I definitely agree with all of that.
It's cool. And I think that it allows, from the work that I've been able to put in and see, is the mental side of the game has been really fun for me to kind of work on and develop over the years, because I feel like there was a lot, and I feel like growing up as you're going through the game, like now we're starting to see a lot more priority put into mental skills training in girls all over. But I feel like as a kid, it was like, okay, you're a physical beast. You're going to be good at the sport. Like just go and be physical. And coming into my career in college and beyond, it was, okay, how do we work on the mental skills? Because yes, you're physically gifted, but you're kind of inconsistent, like you're a little error prone. How do you work on the mental side to kind of limit those errors? Because the physical side will come in, but you get in your head about how many errors you're making, for me. And so it was like building those mental skills to come in and develop and really then help hone in on my game. And something that I've even learned since working with Strong Girls United and hosting this podcast is the whole idea of building a toolbox internally so that then you can bring those tools externally, of using the mental skills to then bring it into your everyday, using the mental skills to then bring into your training, to your ins and outs of sport. Looking at with you and with your career, what you talked about of that vulnerability, working with the sports psych, doing all of it has been really vital to how you and April developed as a partnership. I'm curious now, as you've continued to grow your beach game and continue to get through, what are some tools from your toolbox that you really love using now and that you kind of use in a more constant element to help stay motivated or to keep your head in the game in each moment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, just to say, like, I totally agree that the mental side is so important. And I remember we were working with Mike Gervais on the indoor national team. He's one of the best sports psychs out there. And he kind of took a poll and was like, what percent of the game would you guys say is mental? And it's a really interesting question to ask, like 25 of the best volleyball players in the country, like, how much is physical and how much is mental for you? And I remember there were answers that were like 70%, 90% mental, like, which is crazy because what we do on the court is very, very physical. And so, we strength train and we practice every day. And for people to answer that it was almost all mental for them, I think it just goes to show you, like, especially the higher the level you get and when everybody is physically gifted, like, what's going to set you apart. And I think for a lot of people, it's that mental side, like what gets you to make the right play on match point, or what makes you not crack under pressure. And so, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of tools that I've kind of employed throughout my career. I think one thing that I'm really proud of is just like really every day acting like it was a gold medal match on the line. And I think especially April and I, but just in general, like I always carried this intensity with me. Like there was never a day off. Practice was never just practice. It was like, how am I going to beat every single person in every single drill? And I think that was it comes kind of innately to me, but I think it's a huge thing in terms of getting to these really big matches and not feeling a ton of pressure, because if you put that pressure on yourself daily, I think it really makes it feel like, oh, it's just another day. It's just another game or practice or competition. Later in my career, I really started to visualize more. Before every match, April and I would always take 5 minutes and we'd put on some music. We'd kind of put our hands on our chest and our stomach and feel our breath. And I would really like visualize myself in my body. And so when I say in my body, I mean, like when I'm visualizing, I see the ball coming at me. I'm not looking at myself from behind, seeing it all happen. I'm feeling these things happening. And I think visualizing positive things happening before the match and before practice and all of that, I think that really helped me. I think like it gave me this quiet confidence of like, okay, I just saw myself do this. I know I can do this. I practice it every day. Like I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I just spent time doing it right. And now I'm going to go on the court and actually do it. And so that became a very powerful tool for me, like the last few years leading up to the Olympics, and just making it a part of our routine. I'm trying to think what other mental tools. Goal setting, I think, is huge. Like for me, when I think about kind of what has carried me through my career and why I've played as long as I have and what's kept me hungry and motivated, I think it's always having this really lofty goal. And for me, that was the Olympics. And I think when I take the Olympics out of the equation, there's definitely a little bit of lack of motivation. And I'm kind of dealing with that right now because I've obviously been to the Olympics. We had an amazing run and we got the gold medal. And that was always this like goal that was out of reach for me. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, like what is my real motivation now? Because I have one gold, and is it to try to do it again? Or is it to maybe I'm trying to find my motivation in just like the enjoyment of the game, so it's shifting a little bit for me. But I think knowing what your goal is that really can give you a lot of purpose, and it can make all of the work feel totally worth it. Like I never once on the path to Tokyo ever questioned whether I wanted to be out there ever. Like there was days that it was hard, and there was days that my body was hurting or I was stressed or I was exhausted, like for sure. Like it wasn't like it was always fun, but I never ever questioned being out there. And I think that's because I knew my goal so clearly, which was to go to the Olympics, to win at the Olympics. And so it's like that hunger to accomplish those goals like just carried me through, and it just made going to practice feel like, yeah, what else would I do? Like, of course I'm going to go out there and, work my butt off and get better and win every drill, every competition, like that was just, it was like this one track mind. I had blinders up. I couldn't see anything else. And so it just really, I think, highlights like just the power of goal setting and of knowing, where your motivation comes from.
Absolutely. And I love hearing when you're like, I have the blinders on, like I'm hungry for this exact moment. I'm hungry to win every drill. I'm hungry for that moment. And I really loved hearing about the visualization there, because I don't know if I've ever thought about it. I love visualization as well, but I don't know if I've ever thought about it of like, I'm in my body, I'm seeing this play, and then going off like when I'm on the court next and saying, I already saw myself do this. Like this becomes easy now. I love that's where it goes, because it's like I've visualized myself doing this. I've done this before. My body knows what it feels like. I've put it in there that I can do this. And I feel like that can only add to your hunger, because like, yeah, I did this. Like I'm going to do this again. And it's whether it's running down a crazy play, getting an insane block, hitting, like all of these things, like visualizing in that moment that you're capable of doing it has to only just add to your hunger to continue to do it and to achieve it.
Yeah. And like a lot of times too, especially for beach volleyball, we're on the court and we're out there with not a lot of support. Like it's just our partner. And when you're questioning yourself or not feeling your most confident, like you don't have your coach there building you up or teammates building you up as much. It's like you really have to find it within. And so I think that's such a great tool for just giving you this confidence of like, I know I can do it. I just saw myself do it. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I've done it before. And like, now let's just go put it, on display.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. I'm like, okay, I felt full chills on that one.
Yeah. And I think there's even like some studies that say they studied people who weren't able to train. I can't remember what the craft was, but they were only able to visualize. And it's like scientifically proven that just visualization alone can like create muscle memory and can enhance and increase performance. So to me, it's just such a powerful tool, and it's kind of a no-brainer at this point. It's like once I've realized how much more confident it makes me and how much it kind of just makes me feel like I've done it even more than I have. Like it's like, why would I not visualize before every match, And so I think that's a big tool that a lot of people kind of don't realize or kind of underutilize.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You said it right away. Like there's proof in it. There's like scientific proof that it works. Yeah. And it's an empowering thing of like, okay, I know that I'm capable of doing this. It adds that, okay, I've got this specialty. I may not have, I don't know. I liked the way that you said it of like, I felt it already, so I can do it again. It's not even, I haven't felt it, I've only seen it. It's like, no, I felt myself do this. Yeah. I may not have physically done it yet, but I've felt myself do this. So this is less scary to do. This is less like intimidating to accomplish this feat. It becomes that much easier to accomplish the goal, but it just adds to that like empowering confidence of I'm capable of doing this. It's like the action without saying the words, but you just get the visualization instead of saying it out loud. Like you just already know your capability is there.
And you got to drop the plays. Like you got to drop the situations that you want to see yourself do that maybe you've been having a hard time doing in practice or in the games or something's not translating. It's like you get to drop the exact situation that you want to see yourself do and give yourself that kind of like boost of like, okay, I know I can do it.
I love it. I want to dive in a little bit to I loved hearing earlier when you were talking about setting goals and how like goal setting has been a huge piece of your entire career, and looking at kind of the inspiration of going to the Olympics and where it all started going in. You have been playing volleyball for a long time, but looking at the goal setting element, how much has setting those really lofty goals served as an inspiration? And were you always doing that? Were you like, okay, the goal is Stanford to start and then it's Olympics? Or was it always like, I'm going to the Olympics, here are the things that I'm going to do since then? How did that kind of goal setting process start for you? And then how have you continued on with it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really did much goal setting at a young age. Like, as long as I can remember, I've been very, very competitive, and I've hated failure. I've loved competition. I loved being challenged. Like, I loved being kind of on the brink of when I wasn't good enough for something and I had to prove it, or I had to find a way to get better. And so a lot of times growing up, I was the youngest on my teams because, I had a couple great coaches that really saw potential in me, and they're like, hey, you should not be playing with your age group. You need to be playing with older kids. And I didn't have a lot of confidence at that age. I was very competitive, but I also still felt very like insecure and not so sure of myself. And I remember being like, no, I'm not good enough for these teams. And sometimes I needed that boost from a coach to be like, yes, you are good enough. But I never really got comfortable because I was always with players that were older than me and better than me. And it was always making me strive to be better. And I think just this like constant challenge, like there's always something. I was never in a situation where I was just dominating. I was always playing with older players, or I was trying to play on a youth national team or a junior national team where we were trying to make, like we were really pushing the limit of what we were capable as a team and what I was capable of as a player. And so I think just like that really innate competitiveness and putting myself in these challenging situations was always motivating me. But then I remember having a conversation with my college coach, I think it was my senior year, with John Dunning, and he was like, oh yeah, like, what's next? Like, do you still want to play? I realized I never really looked beyond college, and I never really tried to map out my future, what it would look like. I never said like, oh yeah, I want to make it to the Olympics. But I remember he asked me like, do you want to still play? And I was like, well, like in my head, I was like, duh, like what else would I do? Like, I'm going to keep playing volleyball. Not like what else would I do, but it was like, hadn't even considered not playing or not continuing to play. And so that's when I realized like, oh wait, like there needs to be a path, forward. And what does that look like? And I had been invited to train with the Olympic team my freshman year of college. So I took a leave at Stanford and I left for 2 quarters and tried to make Beijing. But I think it wasn't really until after college that I was like, okay, like I want to make the Olympics. Like I want to do this. And I kind of had a little bit naive about the way that I went about it. And I just thought like, oh, I'm a good player. Like now I'm going to make the Olympics. But when you get in the indoor national team and you're with grown women who have played on the national team for years and years and years and have a lot of professional seasons under their belt, you realize like, oh, this is not going to be as easy as I had thought. But I think when I got to like that crossroads of not making a few Olympic rosters and wondering what's the point, I think that's where I really realized like, okay, the Olympics has always been my goal and it has always been my motivating factor. And when I finally didn't get invited back into the indoor national team in 2016, I was like, okay, if I don't have the Olympics, is this even worth it to me? And I did a lot of hard thinking about it and really just looking within myself and being like, can I enjoy volleyball and live abroad and be away from my friends and family for months on end and find it fulfilling and find the sacrifices worth it if I don't have this lofty goal? And my answer was no. Like my answer was no, like I don't want to be here doing this till who knows what age if I don't have a chance for the Olympics. And maybe when I was 20 or 21, like that answer would have been different. But at that point in my life, I realized like this is my main motivation. And I think it gave me a lot of clarity. I think it made me realize like, okay, I need to find a situation where that can be my goal again. And that's where, that's when I decided that beach was the right choice for me, because I was like, that's a place that I can go and it can be a goal again. And it can be kind of a fresh start and a blank canvas, and I can make it kind of the path that I want it to be.
Oh, that's cool. I love that it became the blank canvas, but same goal, new avenue.
I don't know why I thought that like the Olympics were a realistic goal when I had never played the sport, but I was a little
You had kind of played it, and I like it. I think it's cool because it's like you knew exactly what you wanted to do. And I think hearing the story of how it took you a while to kind of realize that actually was in fact the goal, it makes it even more special of how the journey of beach kind of began for you, because it was such a long journey of figuring out, what am I doing with this indoor thing? Like, is this my goal? Is this not? Where am I looking to go? And then with beach, you were like, no, I've figured my stuff out at this point. I know exactly what I want to do with this, and I'm going to be going for this. And then obviously, again, like crazy happenstance that you run into April at Stagecoach, but then that goal starts to become even more of a vision. Like then you start painting on the canvas, like going back to that whole blank canvas metaphor of like, okay, now I've started to see kind of where my base is going to go and what I need to work on and what I need to achieve. What's the next steps that I'm going to be taking. These are the goals that I've set. This is what I want to accomplish in the meantime. And I like that it took you, I mean, nobody ever likes the feeling of getting left off a roster, but I feel like it only strengthened your goal and your journey in beach to be able to have that foundation of like, okay, this is what I want. I know what I want. This is what I'm going for in this moment.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to like the vulnerability that we talked about earlier. Like when I switched to beach, I remember just like, I think I said it in an interview, and looking back, I was like, why did I say that? But I was like, yeah, I'm here to be the best. And like, I want to go for the gold, and like, I want to make the Olympics. And when I played on the indoor team, I remember one of my teammates who I was not super close with, but she was describing me to somebody that she had met, and she said, oh yeah, Alix is really like sweet and shy and she's a little quiet. And I was like, that's not how I am at all, actually. And it wasn't her fault, but it made me realize like who I am in that gym is not who I truly am. And I think when I got to beach, I was like, I'm doing this the way that is true to me, and I'm going to be myself. And if that gets me to the goal, great. But if it doesn't, like, I'm not going to be somebody else in the process. I think with the indoor team, I was really trying to like fit into the system and be this puzzle piece that they wanted me to be, but that wasn't necessarily who I was or how I played my best volleyball or how I felt kind of the most powerful on the court. And so, you know, like switching to the beach and saying, yeah, like I'm going for gold. I'm trying to qualify for the Olympics. I'm here to be the best. And I hadn't even started playing yet. Like, I think looking back, it was a really cool moment because I was really owning kind of my path and what I wanted out of it. And I was taking up space, and I was, you know, I wasn't afraid to just tell everybody, you know, this is what I'm here for and this is what I'm about. And I think that's what made me feel like, okay, now I'm going to go get it. I've already laid out my goals. Everybody knows what I'm here for, and like my intensity and my hunger and all of that. And now it's just time to like put in the work and go do it. And I wish I had a little bit of that like tenacity and just like kind of the balls to do that on the indoor side and say like, this is who I am, and like deal with me. And no, but like it takes a little bit of like confidence and even a little bit of cockiness to just know that you're here to do it, you know, and here to take care of it. So
Absolutely. I smile and I giggle because I'm like, yeah, it does. Like there's so much in any sport. I think that there's so much that like if you don't have that confidence, you're not going to make it in sport, and you're not going to make it at the highest of high levels. Like you might make it in some context or in some level, but you're not going to make it at the level that you might want to if you don't have that ability to just put it out there and manifest it. I love that you're like, no, I'm going for this. I'm laying this out there. You manifested it. You literally did. It's like you stepped out.
I totally did. I'm sure the people that were like hearing me say like, yeah, I'm here because I want to go to the Olympics are probably like, oh yeah, okay, let's see it then. Like you've got a lot to prove and you've proven nothing, but luckily I backed it up.
Yes, you did in fact back it up. And I feel like too, you look at a huge difference with indoor and beach is like the whole idea of like being named to a roster on indoor is like will you make the roster? Will you not be making the roster? And going back to what we talked about again in the beginning is like so much of your fate in beach volleyball is determined by you. It's determined by your finish. It's determined by your ranking. And with US beach volleyball being historically like at the highest of high levels at the top of all of the world game, US beach volleyball is really hard to make an Olympics for because there's typically teams that are in that top level that don't make it because there's a quota of you can only have 2 US teams that go. And so not only did you manifest that you were going to the Olympics, you're like, I'm manifesting that I'm going to be able to do this, that I'm going to be in the top 2 US teams. And like you said, you backed it up, but it's so cool. I feel like there's such an added emotion to being like, all of this fate was in my hands this time and I determined it this time around. Like nobody else hindered my journey. I I determined this for myself.
Yeah. And maybe that's why I felt like I could kind of lay my heart on the line and just like declare my goals and my dreams and all of that, because I knew that nobody could get in my way. It's like if I really stepped up to the plate, then I would be able to accomplish my goals. And so I don't know if I was aware of why I said that, but I think as we're talking about it right now, like I did know that nobody could bench me, and if I found the right situation, I could play and I could succeed and I could get there. And so I do think I found just the whole sport of beach volleyball just very kind of like empowering. Like there was this space for me to have the success I wanted if I claimed it.
Yep. You gave me goosebumps again as I'm looking up. I'm like, wow, yep, that was a huge reason why I ended up choosing the sport as well, was so much of your fate is in your own hands, and getting to be able to have that power and to determine it yourself it's like one of my favorite things about this sport. I mean, it's really cool that we get to do it in beautiful settings, but I think that so much of the journey really being your own and it's all up to your choice is such a cool and unique factor that you don't really get to see in a lot of sports. And so I love it.
I think it's the best part of our sport, and I hope it's protected for forever and ever.
Agreed. Me too. What were the emotions like? Now I'm like thinking about it of you manifested your Olympic journey, which is amazing. But it was a long Olympic journey for you. I mean, it started out in the 2008 journey for the indoor side, and you'd been through 3 Olympic cycles indoor wise and went on a 4th Olympic cycle looking at the beach side of things. What were the emotions like, not even just being at the Olympics, but kind of when you got to the end of it, you had achieved that goal that you set out to do, whether you realized it fully in 2008 or not. You set that goal a long time ago to go out and execute. What were the emotions like once you had actually executed them?
Yeah, I mean, I think like as I got closer and closer to qualifying, I think like my motivation had just been building and building over a decade, and I think some people would get really discouraged by the failure. And there were for sure times, especially when I was still playing indoor, where I was starting to feel discouraged. But once I got to the beach, it was like an extra chip on my shoulder. I was like, you know what? I am going to prove that I can go to the Olympics. I don't care if I didn't make Beijing or London or Rio, or I don't care if this coach didn't think I was worthy of the spot. Like, I'm going to prove it. And so I think like once I got to the beach, it was almost like there was all of that added motivation from all of my failure on the indoor side. And I think from the people on the beach, they're like, oh, this was such an easy path for you. You transitioned so quickly. But it was like, this wasn't a linear or easy or short path for me in any way, shape, or form. Like I had been trying for the Olympics since 2008. So that's 13 years between the time that I tried to make my first Olympics and the time that I actually made it. And so I think, like when I look back, like I'm so proud of my perseverance, because it would have been really easy to be like, oh, I didn't make it, poor me. Like this isn't going to work out. And instead I just like kept, working hard, trying to make rosters. When I finally said, okay, this isn't for me, I found another way, which we're lucky that we have kind of 2 sports that are in the same realm. But like, I just feel like I really just found a way, and I didn't let people saying no or leaving me off rosters kind of discourage me or lose my own belief that I could do it. Like some part of me always believed that I could make the Olympics, and I just needed to figure out the right path for me. But I just feel like the failure for sure motivated me even more. And so I think I just remember like we had finally locked in the Olympic bid, and it felt really surreal, and it felt like a long time coming. And I think some people maybe make an Olympic roster and they don't realize how cool it is at the time. Maybe they're really young, or maybe it came really easily. But I think for me, there was just so much appreciation for what it truly was and what the opportunity was, because I wanted it for so long. So there was like no taking it for granted on my end. Like I was probably more appreciative of that opportunity than most people who make the Olympics.
It is. I love the gratitude factor. And I also think there's no discrediting your journey, because it was a long one. And it's also, I feel like getting to know you over the last, I didn't know you when you went to the Olympics. I only met you after you guys had won, but it was really like getting to hear kind of what it took to get there. and the amount of work that you were putting in the sand. It's just like you may have had a 4-year journey to get there, or 4.5 year of like full-time beach, but at the same time you were like double daying. So it's like you had like 8 years worth of practices put into 4 years because you were like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, absolutely. I'm putting my heart and soul. I'm going to put everything in it, because why wouldn't I put all my eggs in that basket? And so I feel like there's the ability to like discredit, say, oh, it was so quick for you. And I love you being like, no, it was a 13-year journey for me. And also, like, yes, my beach journey might have been shorter than the average Joe, but I put in just as much work as people who were on a longer journey than I was on this one.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I've reflected on it already, and I'm like, if I could have had an easy journey and made the Olympics when I was 21, like, would I have wanted that? Would that have been a cooler journey? But like, I just feel like everything's so much more meaningful because of the way that it played out for me. And obviously everybody's journey is their own, but like, knowing that, maybe I didn't make it and I had to work even harder and I had to prove people wrong and I had to find a new sport and all of the things, like, I just feel like I'm really proud of the way that it happened, and it gave winning and qualifying so much more meaning than it would have if I just made the Olympics right off the bat. And so I don't know. I feel so lucky for the way that it played out and for just not giving up when it got hard or discouraging or any of that.
The chip on your shoulder just made it that much more special.
Totally.
It's incredible. And then you did it. You won the gold. I remember watching that gold medal winning point. I was like sitting at home with my mom, and we were like holding hands when you guys won it. And I remember us jumping. We were like, they did it! Ah! Like jumping up and down.
Well, I remember being on the court, and I think we were winning in the second set, and I don't remember what the score was, but it was like midway second set. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, we're going to win the Olympics. And then because I kind of got out of the zone and I was like getting ahead of myself, they served me. I think I got aced. Then we switched sides, and then I made like 2 boneheaded plays. I was like, Alex, like, get your head back in the game. Match is not over. And then I think we called the timeout even, and we went back out and we won. But I just had like a pinch me moment in the middle of the match, which had never happened before. And I was like, I'm glad this doesn't normally happen, but that was not the right time to start thinking about that.
You're like, out of body experience. Let's have that after the game is over. We're winning the Olympics. Yes, but let's like actually win the Olympics before we talk about how we're winning the Olympics.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny that you say that, because as you were saying it, I'm like, oh, I go back and I like roll back the memory tapes. I kind of like vaguely remember that and we were like, okay, like little wobbly, but that's okay. We had enough of a lead. Like, let's go back.
God, I made like at least three or four like bad plays where I just was not focused, and that's why being present and like having all of those mental cues and just working on like consistency and mental tough, like those things all matter, because that's an example of what happens when that goes out of the window, and it wasn't good.
Been there. I feel that so heavily on like just kind of the dissociation. I had it happen like I'm looking at the clock and I'm like a month ago probably, of just one of the bigger wins that I've ever had on the beach. And I was like, it was coming down and it was our match point, like in a 2-setter win, and my mom and boyfriend, like everybody was there watching, my family, my friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the biggest win of my entire life. And then it's like, get aced, hit a ball out, option a ball out. And I was like, time out. Like, I need to chill out. My partner and I, we look at each other. I'm like, Katie, we're good. Let's just like do it. And we come back out, and I think we like lose a rally, and it's 20-19. And we're like, okay, now we actually like really need to go. Like, there's no more room here. We ended up pulling it out on that last point. But I like vividly have a memory of that, of like, okay, like, oh my God, I'm going to win this game, and then make 3 errors. And it's like, shoot, okay, I actually need to win this game before thinking about how we're going to win this game.
Not over till it's over.
No, it is not, especially not in beach, when there's so many elements that are just out of your control, whether it's like weather, ref, all of it. It's like so much is in your control, but so much is also out of your control.
Yeah, Teddy, my husband, played hockey, but he like always comments on how crazy the momentum swings are in volleyball. Like, a team can have total control, and you think that judging by the score, you're like, there's no way a team can come back from that kind of deficit. And it's like in volleyball,
And then they do.
It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they do. And it's like, whoa.
I know. Which also makes it so much more exciting to watch too. Cause it's like, it's anybody's game.
Exactly.
Until the very end.
Literally all the way till the end. It's not over till it's over. It's, again, we go back to like favorite things about the sport. It's like, that's another one that's high on the list of favorite things about this sport.
Yeah. One time we were in Stad and we were playing a Russian team that was, I don't think they were even ranked. It was a team that we should have taken care of. And we got down 1-11, which I don't know if you've ever been down that much, but I had never been down that much in my entire life, like not even in practice. Our coach went to the parking lot because she was like, I must be bad luck or something. She left. And I just remember being like, how are we down this much? But just, we like have to fight our way back. We ended up losing the first set, like respectively, like 21-16 or something. And we ended up winning the match. But it just goes to show you, it's like, you can find yourself in the most unbelievable situations, and just knowing that it's possible to come back and to win in those kinds of situations, I feel like is really like, it's just really cool. I feel like there's a chance to always believe in yourself no matter who's winning or what the score is.
Absolutely. I can neither confirm nor deny that I've been down by that large of a deficit before in a game. No, it's exactly that. It's never over. And I've definitely had moments where super huge deficits have happened, but it's like, okay, whether or not, like, let's do absolutely everything that we can in this set, but we got another set immediately after it, or like whether it's the second, third, first, whatever the order is, it's like, okay, we came back. I can't believe we came back from being down by that much and came that close, and we may not have won it, but we got another set coming. And then it kind of gives you the momentum because you're like, whoa, I was down by so much. Now I have momentum. I can totally win this thing.
Totally.
It's like not the best thing in the world.
Lose a set and be gaining momentum. Like there's been so many times where we're down a lot, and I've said to April, like, okay, let's not just get this set over with. We need to like scratch and claw for points and get momentum and get that going for the next set. And we do. And it makes a huge difference. Like, yeah, we could be down, say 19-13, and we could just give up 2 points and the set would be over and we'd have a clean slate again. Or we can fight to get it to be 19-16 or 21-18 and go into the next set feeling more confident. So that's kind of a cool scenario that I don't think exists in a lot of other sports.
Agreed. It is. It is all about the momentum. And I think the power of the comeback and having that mentality of that you're going to do it, whether or not you win this set, get that momentum so that you can come back and win later. It makes me happy when you get to do it. So you had just mentioned Teddy, your husband, and we had talked a little bit in the beginning about your son, Theo. And I want to talk about the fact that you're an absolute super mom for a half second here. You won gold in 2021. You had Theo, who he's just over a year old, if I remember correctly now, right?
Yeah, he's 15 months now.
Yes. So he is an absolute he is a little tank right now. I like last time I saw him, I was like, he is so big now for being just barely.
Good way to describe him.
Yes, he is just an absolute warrior at 15 months already. But you came back to volleyball after having him. So he's 15 months now. You came back and competed in the World Championships in fall of 2023 last year. And I mean, he was not more than 5 months old, I want to say, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think he was. So when I played in Paris, which was the tournament before World Champs, I think he was like 3.5 or a little under 4. And then at World Champs, he was like 4 and maybe some change, which I don't really know what I was thinking because it's a little bit crazy when I look back at it. But at the time I was like, I can do this. Like, I've trained my whole pregnancy. Like, I've been resting for the last 6 weeks. Like, what am I waiting for it? So, I mean, I get some ideas in my mind sometimes and I just think that I can do everything. But it honestly, like, it's impressive looking back, and it's kind of crazy to think what we're capable of doing and birthing another human being and then get back to sport like that. So, it's crazy.
I was going to say, you just absolutely pulled like an insane comeback out, and doing any level of competition that quickly on a turnaround after having the absolute incredibleness that is like carrying a child, having a child, coming back 3 to 4 months later and then competing on the world tour at the highest level. It may not have been your highest level that you ever played at, but still competing at the highest world volleyball level. Looking at that comeback, like, I think of hearing your mindset going into things of like, why wouldn't I be able to? It makes so much sense. But also, like, thinking of the comeback, what was that feeling when you stepped on the court for the first time with the comeback? Where did you have nerves? What did it feel like when you were out there? And how has your relationship with the sport like been able to kind of grow and since the comeback, as you've come back and you've got your little man with you?
Well, I think one thing that's important when I talk about this comeback, like I didn't just want to challenge myself to see how quickly I could come back. There was a really, really small and shrinking window of maybe being able to like slip my foot in the door for Olympic qualification. And so, you know, I thought a lot about, do I want to rush back and do this, or do I just want to like completely miss the Olympic cycle altogether? And Teddy was actually really encouraging. He was like, if you don't do this, you're going to always wonder and you're going to have regret of not trying. And April was still pregnant at the time, so she wasn't available as a partner. So I played with Haley Harward, but I just felt like, I would be more proud if I gave it a shot and failed than if I didn't try at all. And I knew that I wasn't, at my 100%, but I still was like, okay, my 80% is still pretty good. And so I just wanted the challenge. I wanted to see if I could do it. It's definitely a vulnerable situation to be returning so soon and knowing that you're not playing your best volleyball, you're not in your best shape. We're not the highest seeded teams anymore. And I think some of that was a little bit scary and kind of unfamiliar, but I was just like, this is not about ego. It's about going out there and trying your hardest. And I think throughout my career, I don't have a lot of regret because I've always tried my hardest and always like just put myself out there and kind of laid my heart on the line. And so this was just another example of that, of like, okay, regardless of whether we qualify for the Olympics, I will have known that I tried. And we basically had like a 0.1% chance of getting in the mix because Sarah and Kelly and Taryn and Kristen were pretty much had the two bids locked in. But I also think, like, as amazing as it was that I came back, I realized like this is a whole new world and realm of that I have never dealt with, being a mom and trying to balance that with sport. And it's not as easy as I thought it would be. And, like in order to train, you have to be gone a lot. So that takes a lot of help, and getting help costs money. And then returning after a day of kind of putting myself first and then missing a lot of my son's awake hours. Like it was hard. Like it didn't feel super great getting home at 4 or 5 p.m. after a full day of training and being like, okay, now he's only awake for another hour or two. Like, why did I have a child if I'm not going to be around? And, everybody's paths look very different. But I think after that, I was like, okay, if there's not an Olympics in the picture, like I want to take a step back. And I actually didn't train for, I think from like October to February, I took off from volleyball, and I wanted to be present and I wanted to be the best mom that I could be. And I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to play more or not. Like, so much of volleyball is just like the partnerships that present themselves. So I was kind of just like being a mom, and I was enjoying it. And then that's when April called me up. I think it was in February. I remember sitting on my couch, getting a text being like, okay, like, do you want to play? And I was like, oh boy, here we go again. So, but luckily, like, I think it was good to have a little bit of that experience before pairing up with April again, because I kind of knew what it entailed, and I knew what my boundaries were as a mom, because, she wanted to do this and she hadn't done it yet, but I was like, okay, I'm not willing to be gone all day. That's not a way that feels good for me. And so, we set limits on our training, and I said, I need to be home in the afternoon every day. I'm not willing to be watching video until 4 or 5 p.m. because then I'm not going to feel good emotionally and mentally. I'm not going to feel proud of myself as a mom. And then that's going to translate to the court. And so the way that we train now is so different than how it was pre-Olympics. I mean, pre-Olympics, there was no other consideration besides ourselves, and we were putting ourselves first, which is what you have to do to be the best a lot of the time. But that involved being gone from my house from like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. It was crazy, long, physically, mentally draining days. And now we're not investing that kind of time. Like, we're trying to train smarter, not harder, but we aren't training as intensely as we used to. And I think that shows in some of the results that we've had. And it now, I mean, I think our perspective has broadened. It's not just about being the best. It's returning back at, after becoming moms and proving to people that we can do it and that we can get back out there and we can play at that level. And so it's been a little bit challenging, but it's also been rewarding knowing that we're kind of doing it on our terms and doing it in a way that feels good for both of us. And, it's still hard because I am very just naturally competitive, and it's like, okay, yes, it's like balance is super nice, but then getting 7th place is not super nice. So then usually after a tournament, I text April, I'm like, hey, we need to train harder because this isn't good enough. It's not getting us the results that we want. And so it's been kind of a learning process for both of us. And I think, this last month or so, we've started to step up our training and just looking forward to the league and the last few tournaments we have left. We really want to make a big push because I think we're not that far off from challenging these top teams. And I know that with the right training and dedication that we can get there. And so it's like, okay, maybe we can make this one last push for this season, kick our training up a gear, maybe be gone a little bit more, but hopefully get some more results.
I am so excited to keep watching you guys compete. What I really love hearing is just the amount of growth and learning that you still get to do now, and getting to hear it from your perspective as a mom. You've gotten to have this whole beach volleyball has been just a huge system of growth for you, I feel like, which is so cool because it's you went through this whole indoor system and you kind of got beaten and battered a little bit by just a system that didn't fit for you. You come into this beach system, you're like, I love this. I can set my goals. I'm the master of my own fate. And then you give yourself another absolute blessing and challenge simultaneously of how am I going to keep on working as an athlete, and what is my identity now as an athlete and a mother. And I love that you've been able to do it with April, again, talking about the just absolute beauty that is your guys' team culture, and that has been able to go. But I think it's really cool getting to learn where are my priorities set? What does my training look like? What do these XYZ things look like in this whole new realm of life? And what is my goal 5 years down the road? What is my goal 5 weeks down the road? And figuring those things out, it's you get to, again, go back to a whole growth standpoint and mindset of where are my priorities? What does my goal look like? What am I doing now in the position that I'm in? So I love it.
Yeah, I just think you phrased that so perfectly with system of growth. And I think about all that volleyball has given me and just the lessons it's taught me and the opportunities and what I've learned about myself, even off the court, but from volleyball, being on a team and having to learn to work with different personalities and overcome different challenges. Sport just presents so many incredible challenges and opportunities for growth. And I think I'm so lucky to have been able to play volleyball for this long and to be continuing to play. And I also think the cool thing about sports too is that there's always room for improvement. Even when we won gold, I looked at myself and I was like, there's still so many weaknesses in my game. If I continue on this path, I can get even better than where I am right now. And that's exciting and that's motivating. And I think I'm a very growth mindset person naturally. I love going to practice and I love trying to get better every day and picking apart little parts of my game. And I think that's just my favorite thing about sports in general. It's just that you can always get better, and that, the quest for greatness never ends, because you think you get to the top and you get here, and then the ceiling gets a little bit higher. And so, yeah, I just think sports are so special in that way.
Oh, I love it. Well, here's to sport and here's to growth. It's pretty epic.
It's amazing.
Alix, thank you so much for chatting today and really just taking the time to, I've loved hearing your journey and hearing about it from, again, going back to this whole perspective of just growing the game and setting out these goals. And I have just one last set of questions for you, and they are our Strong Girls United series questions, which follow the pillars of our nonprofit. For our new listeners who are tuning in, the pillars of Strong Girls United are strong bodies, kind hearts, and unstoppable minds. And what we do as a nonprofit is feeding that idea of growing strong bodies, teaching kind hearts, and continuing to create unstoppable minds with all the girls that we get the chance to work with and continue to grow. And so following the pillars of our nonprofit. Alix, I have to ask you, what do you do to keep your body strong?
I think I've just learned over the years what my body needs. And I think paying attention to your body is such a superpower. And I think through, strength and conditioning, through nutrition, those are a couple of my biggest ways that I nourish my body and I take care of my body. And I found ways to individually give my body what it needs and not just what everybody needs, because I don't really believe in kind of like blanket training. And so I think, I would encourage everybody else who is still learning about their body, like keep listening to your body and keep figuring out what you need for your body and what that looks like. And like, don't let anybody else try to make that look different for you. So I think having found that, it's just really empowering to go to training every day and to have, a workout that's tailored to me and to eat things that make my body feel good. And when your body really is like kind of firing on all cylinders, it's just the best feeling.
I love it. Now, next up, how do you keep your heart kind?
That's a good question. I think, as I've gotten older and continued to mature, I feel like I understand the importance of being a good person and how big of a difference that can make and how contagious it is to be nice. And I think, when I was younger, a lot of times I had those blinders on and I was so competitive and it was always like, how do I get to the top? And, it was me, 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 me. And now as I get older and I have a son and, I'm married and there's just so much thinking about other people, it's like when you are around nice, good people, it makes you want to be a better person. And I think people used to ask me like, oh, how do you want to inspire other people? And I'm like, I don't really believe in trying to inspire other people. I think for me, it was always like, I'm going to be the best version of myself. And I hope that sets a good example. I hope that makes someone else want to be better. But I think as I've gotten older, I've realized how contagious it is and how being an important person really can inspire or change somebody to be a better person as well. So I think just knowing that, one small action can make a difference in somebody else's life and can make them be nicer in turn. So I just think being a good person is such an underrated but incredibly important thing in life.
That made me just like so warm just hearing that. It is true. It's a beautiful thing to just be a good person and let the rest come behind. Now, last but most certainly not least, how do you keep your mind unstoppable?
I think that just goes back to like knowing your purpose, knowing your goals. I think that comes from a lot of self-reflection and understanding yourself and knowing, what drives you and what makes you happy. I think for me, as much as I'm a very competitive person and have always been highly competitive, I think balance has been really important for me too. We didn't talk about that a ton today, but I learned early on that I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket and that if volleyball wasn't going my way, that there needed to be other things that fulfilled me. And I think, kind of pursuing other hobbies and passions and just knowing that there's a life outside of volleyball, I think that balance is just such a superpower for me and really helps me show up on the court to be the best version of myself. And so, I think knowing yourself, knowing what you need, what makes you feel fulfilled and satisfied and inspired and motivated, all of that like really helps guide you to a happy, balanced life.
Beautiful. Alix, I seriously can't thank you enough for coming on today and sharing and just being here. It's an honor.
Well, thank you for having me and thank you for giving this platform to support, women in sport. I think we're seeing right now just women's sports take off and there's so many women that deserve that platform. So thanks for giving it to all of us.
Absolutely. It wouldn't feel right not doing it. Well, for everybody who have tuned in today, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Strong Girls Pod. As always, I'm your host, Charlie Ekstrom, and I'm here with Alix Klineman, and we are signing off. Thank you for taking the time to join us today on Strong Girls Pod. In the spirit of growing community and inspiring strong girls and women everywhere, please subscribe, rate, and leave a comment about our podcast. Tell your friends, family, really everyone to listen in and enjoy. This podcast is sponsored by Strong Girls United, a nonprofit with a mission to empower girls to be strong, confident, and resilient through sports mentorship and mental health programming. Visit sgunitedfoundation.org to learn more on how you can get involved today.